Hey everybody, this is Wilsey and welcome to my Twitch stream. I am super excited to do this again and I think we'll have a good story for today. I'm really feeling it. I've been studying up on storytelling techniques, I've been watching lectures, and I'm excited to get started. So, our word for today is license. Okay. Alright, so license gives us a bunch of different options. We have, obviously, it's a document. We can have some sort of government. There's some sort of political force. We also have the famous license to kill. That can be a lot of fun. There's also, what can we do with license? It's a permit to do something. Driver's license is a potential route to go down. That can be a really nice coming of age, and it's a rite of passage. You've gained some sort of knowledge. You have some sort of new ability that you're allowed to do. There are a whole bunch of different things. License is just basically a permission. You could also do something like defying power, kind of I don't need a license, I'm doing this in secret, so it could be some sort of secret society even. License. What else could we do? We could do we could do a we could do what else could we do? We could do a cool coming of age story. We could do a mentor apprentice relationship where at the end the apprentice learns the skill and gets the license to do whatever the mentor is teaching. It could be this can lead to a whole bunch of different avenues, so we have a lot to work with. So I'm excited, so let's get down to it. So again, 4 basic elements of story we're going to make in our outline, and that is going to be our plot, our characters, our setting, and of course, conflict. So, when I hear license, obviously I think of the things that I've just listed, but I'm kind of feeling the new ability mentor-apprentice relationship right now. I think that could be really fun. I think that would be a really nice story. So let's have a mentor and an apprentice. There's going to be some sort of imparting knowledge. The apprentice is going to gain something, and at the end of it, he's going to be able to use whatever skills he's gained. And I think it might be fun to do a different worldly setting. Maybe it's a magical setting even. The apprentice is learning the magic, and at the end, the mentor will pass on his knowledge into the apprentice. That could be a lot of fun. Plus, we get to do a bunch of magic system talk, which I really love. I obviously am a big fan of Brandon Sanderson, and he does a whole lot on magic systems, with Sanderson's 3 laws, and that could be super fun to get into. So let's have some sort of magic in our setting, and let's build it around the apprentice learning the magic. Let's throw in secret society even. Secret society of magic users. Alright, so now that we have this secret society, let's just define the magical rules. Now we could go with a soft magic system or a hard magic system. I think for our purposes, a soft magic system might be... well, let's ask ourselves, like, what do we want out of this magic system? So a soft magic system does not have many rules, or sometimes not even any rules, and it's meant to give the world a sense of wonder. However, a hard magic system has those hard to find rules, and it's really interesting to see how the characters use the limitations and the costs of the magic system in creative ways to accomplish something. So that could be really interesting. I feel like in this scenario, a soft magic system would be like towards the... We could set it up as if we were to do a... Here, I'll write this down. Soft magic system, there could be a bunch of different settings like the apprentice and the mentor meet. It could be like a graduation kind of, sort of, where like the apprentice has learned the skills. And that could be really fun. Or we could do, again, hard magic system, where apprentice is learning from the mentor. That all just depends on what sort of story we want to tell. I think in order to, going back to this license idea, we probably need, in order to, like, I think it'd be really fun to have them go out and learn the magic. In order to get the license, like, you have to, maybe it's a test, potentially, like you get tested and you test and you earn the license, and that would lend itself more to a hard magic system, because you're going out, you're solving the test, you're solving the problems, you're passing the test, and the intricacy is coming from what you're doing with the magic. It's not necessarily, there's magic everywhere, and it's all wonderful and mystical and powerful. Like, those stories are told really, really well. Like, a really good example of soft magic is Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings has a very soft magic system in the form of Gandalf. Gandalf can do, like, wizardy things, but unless you get, like, really, really deep into, like, the lore of Lord of the Rings, Gandalf's a wizard, he does magic. That's all you pretty much know about him. So that's a very soft magic system in terms of Gandalf, because you don't really know what he can do, but you know it's magic because Gandalf is doing it, and he's a wizard, and he does magic. Hard magic system is much more like stuff like Full Metal Alchemist, where you have the law of equivalent exchange, where everything you make basically has to come from the components that are already there. You can't build a radio unless you have all of the parts. So that's a very hard set rule that restricts the characters. So the story evolves in hard magic systems of how can they push the limits of the hard magic system. And I think in order to get the license and pass this test, it would be interesting to see how our apprentice has thought of the magic and brings his own unique spin to it. I think that'd be really fun. So let's go. So we're gonna go with hard magic system for our licensed story today. That's gonna be super fun. So hard magic. Now let's get into Sanderson's 3 laws. Now these 3 laws are more of like general guidelines for writing a really good magic system, but they are very they're good general guidelines for like making your hard magic system much more interesting and having the characters be much more like driven and understandable. So the first law is oh boy, let's see if I can not mix up the order. The first law is that the magic system has rules. Second law, I think this is the third. I think the second law is your character. Oh wait, no, that's the first law. My bad. Trying to remember the order of this is really hard. How well your characters can push the limits of the magic is directly proportional to how well your reader understands the magic. So, what this means is if you don't really explain your magic system and you're using it to solve problems, it's not going to have as much of an impact if the audience does not understand the magic to begin with. For a really good example, we can use Avatar: The Last Airbender. So Avatar: The Last Airbender, there are these elemental benders who are able to manipulate the like the 4 fundamental elements: earth, wind, fire, and air. Wait. Earth, wind, fire, and water. Wind and air are the same thing. Oh my. It's been it's been a time. Earth, wind, fire, and water. And there are very specific rules, like firebenders can generate fire, but every other bender has to have access to that resource in the natural environment. You can't just generate air, you can't just generate water. The exception is firebenders. Second rule of the magic system is that only the avatar can bend all 4 elements. Everyone else only gets 1, max. So that way you don't run into this like fire airbender or this water airbender or any earth water benders. It's always just water, just fire, just air, and just earth, except for the avatar. So those are like some really good rules to set up your magic system. And then from there you can push the limits of that, like how water extends to the water for plants and even blood, how fire extends to lightning, how earth can extend to metal bending, just that sort of thing. Your characters can creatively push the limits of their abilities because everything has been understood up until that point. And it's really interesting to see how they've come up with this stuff because the reader understands where it all comes from, and the reader could theoretically solve these problems. It's very well foretold, and it's like believable. Even when you have this hard magic system, you want to make it understandable. Like there's a given suspension of belief with stories that have magic where, okay, they're going to be doing magic. I understand that. I know what I'm getting myself into. But you don't want to just throw your characters into the fire and say, go, magic, do it, do the thing, ta-da. There are a bunch of different pitfalls with that. For example, if your characters are super overpowered at the very beginning, but then at the midway point they can't do anything, the reader's left asking, wait, how come they can't just do what they did before right now? Why have they like lost power? And if you don't have a good way around this, you've fallen into a trap. And your story becomes a lot less like authentic. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is there's a spectrum of soft to hard, which we just went over. Soft magic is, again, much less defined, and it's not great to use soft magic to solve problems. That's not really the point of soft magic. For example, Gandalf is not used to solve problems. He's there to remind the reader how small the hobbits are and how vast this world is. Soft magic is meant to keep the story light and mystical and feel just like expansive. And then hard magic used to solve problems, creative solutions to different problems. It's really cool, and we're keeping going with hard magic. Now the third and final bit, Sanderson's third law, is that costs, limitations, and there's another one. I forget the word he uses for it, but basically costs and limitations are much more interesting than powers. What Sanderson means by this is that having a power is a lot less interesting and a lot less compelling for the narrative than are the cost limitations, because by defining the cost limitations, you can take your story and excel it to new heights. A good example is, or just a hypothetical scenario. Let's say that your main character is super strong. That's cool. But what if your character is only super strong when his eyes are closed? How does that work? So he's gotta, since he can only be super strong when his eyes are closed, maybe he intentionally goes blind so that he can be super strong all the time. Maybe he develops enhancements in his other senses, like his sense of smell and his sense of taste and his sense of touch, so that he can be more in tune and keep his eyes closed for longer, so that he can be super strong for more of the time. How does this impact how he functions in his daily life? Is it better to have it as like an off-on switch? When he needs it, he'll just close his eyes, or does he want it all the time? Do people figure out that he is super strong when his eyes are closed? How does that impact their views toward him? Do they only trust him during the day? What happens when he sleeps? If he has, if he ever shares his bed with someone, they're going to be really scared. They're going to be really scared of him, because if he's super strong and he rolls over, he could accidentally, flatten the other person or something. You don't know. But that's really interesting. By putting these cost limitations on these characters, you get to see how they react to having these cost limitations, which is much more interesting than just, he is super strong, the end. Limitations are slightly different. Or actually that was a limitation. A cost is cost is something you have to give up in order to do the magic. A really good example of this is in the Inheritance series with Aragon and what's the main character? I've forgotten. Is Aragon the dragon? No. Dragon's a girl. A good example is Aragon. It costs him. He's trained to move stuff from far away, but the magic is directly proportional to how close he is to it. If he pushes a pebble 1,000 miles away, that's going to be so much harder than pushing a pebble right next to him. This is a good example of a cost because he is genuinely worn out after doing the magic. Another good example is the series The Magicians by, I think it's Lev Grossman. In there, it's a very soft magic system, but there is a very hard set rule of if you do too much magic, you turn into a Niffin. And the Niffin's an evil, all-magic magician creature of someone who's gone too far and they have no emotion, and it's really, really powerful and really dangerous, but that's a very well-defined cost. If you go too far, you become a Niffin. That's a cost. A limitation is, like we just talked about with the eyes, there's one more that I forget the word, but it basically amounts to something like this. Costs, you see the cost, you pay the cost, you do the thing. Limitations are not things that you try and change, it's just something you have to work with. A non-magical example is if you are born with one arm. The story probably isn't about you building another arm for yourself, although it could be, and it could be done well, but the story is probably about you working within the limitations of your physical body. Magic has those limitations. That's what I talked about with the super strong, but only when his eyes are closed. The last bit is kind of like the character-driven portion. You can tie magic in with character arcs in order to make narrative moments more impactful. For instance, in Avatar: The Last Airbender, Zuko is unable to redirect lightning. He needs to overcome his I don't want to say limitation because then that'll get confusing, but he needs to overcome this mental block. This is directly related to his guilt and shame about being being cast out, and his abusive relationship with his father. When he finally confronts his father, he accepts himself for who he is redeemed, then he can bend lightning. He has overcome this obstacle. So, kind of to sum up, there are 3 different things that are much more interesting than the powers themselves. There is things you can work around, things you can build up to. There are there are limitations that you work in spite of, and then there are costs that you pay in order to do things. One can change, one is completely up to you as the author and up to your characters to overcome. One is built into the core, you probably don't mess with it, you probably work inside those limitations, and the third is the choice of whether I use it, can I pay the cost? Those are like the 3 main things that make powers much more interesting. So those are Sanderson's 3 laws on hard magic systems, and I'm super excited that we're finally talking about this. I love all of these interesting takes on magic systems, so I'm like really happy right now. So now that we've got the basics of a hard magic system down, we know we want an apprentice. We know I want him to pass some sort of test. Actually, let's make the apprentice a female. All of my stories up until this point have had, like, maybe not the men as the main character, but men as, like, you know, the overcoming character or something. And that I'm male, so I kind of default to thinking of everyone as male. Plus, like when I say he, I just kind of mean that in like a general neutral term, unless I'm talking about like someone specific who is a man. But let's make our main protagonist female, because I haven't written a female main character since, I don't know, a few stories ago. So, female main character, what should we call her? I always liked the name Shay. I think Shay is a cool name. And then the mentor. Mentor. Let's have his name be like. I was gonna write Oscar, but I. Munin? Millis. Pyres. Tyrus. Tyrus. I like the name Tyrus. I like it. So Tyrus, probably a female name by just the sound of it. So let's have the mentor be female as well. So, Secret Society of Magic Users. Well, first now that we have like the basics of hard magic down, let's actually define what our magic system is. In Mistborn, Brandon Sanderson uses like vector physics, which are pretty cool. Of course, we have the 4 Aristotelian elements, but I kind of want to stay away from those. just because they've been done so many times, you can do something really well and have it not be a cliche. But I just feel like doing something different today. What should we do? Just some basic ideas. Let me write down. Aristotelian elements. Did I spell that wrong? There is physics. Maybe it could be like the STEM fields. Each science is a different magic. Kind of like you are like a researcher, or you're a technology, like a techno path or something. Then you're an engineer and math. Maybe that could be cool. What else? So we have like the Superman powers of strength, flight, laser vision. You could have superhuman intellect. You could be like super fast. So what could we do here? So what is our hard magic system? Since the story, since I'm generally writing short stories on this YouTube channel, we probably want it like pretty easy to understand, not super complicated. What could we do? We could have what might be really fun is kind of like not earth bending and not like light bending, but kind of a combination of the two. Kind of like what if this form of magic is reliant on the relationship of light and dark, where you basically have this, where if you fire like light bolts at something, you can create like quakes in the ground, kinda sorta. Or if you fire like dark bolts, create chasms. Okay, wait. No, it's not light and dark. It's a relationship of addition and subtraction. Or maybe of life and death. Fire life bolts, you like make the planet, or you make the section of whatever you're firing more hospitable to life. If you hit like the ground, like grass starts growing. If you hit like a person, actually really don't want to, you probably don't want to hit a person with a life bolt. But that's kind of the vibe I'm feeling. If you fire a death bolt, for lack of a better term, you destroy the life. Like plants die or something. And since it's a hard magic system, let's have it have a cost where every time you create life, you must take it away from something else. So you create a forest, you must destroy like, I don't know, a habitat. Create an animal. Maybe this exchange should be like of equal or greater value. So create a tree, must destroy a forest, create an animal, destroy a flock or a pride or a group. That could be really interesting. But then would this work in the opposite way for death, where if you destroy an animal, it creates a group of animals? I don't think it should work like that. Because then you can just undo stuff, and I want it to feel kind of permanent. What if it's much easier to destroy stuff? Like it doesn't... To destroy a forest, you only need a tree, but to create a tree, you need an entire forest to be destroyed. So... and this can, like, goes into it's much easier to destroy things than it is to build something, and it takes a lot more effort to make something without, like, your actions have consequences, and sometimes they, like, this is a very, like, consequential sort of magic system where it's much easier to destroy. So here, I'll put theme in a different category. So the theme of this sort of magic system is that it's easy to destroy, hard to create. Creation requires sacrifice. Magic can be a tool, but also a weapon. Like a powerful tool, but a dangerous weapon. Choosing when to use magic is vital. So, this is going to be a really interesting theme to explore of the test then lends itself into how do I phrase this? If you magic users in this universe would have this tremendous responsibility to only use magic when necessary. If in their experiments and their creations, if they cause so much damage. So those who can and should use magic should only be able to like really understand the depth of what they're getting themselves into. Understand like this, that what they want to do has a cost. So maybe the test that the apprentice learns is that magic has a cost, and sometimes it's better not to use magic and solve the problem organically than it is to do the magic and risk hurting people around you. That could be a really interesting sort of theme. Like, your creativity will be it's not even creative, it's like your morality. This is like a moral choice to use this sort of magic. Like, do I destroy all of these things in order to create something that I want? Or is there another way that I can do this? Is there a way that I can maybe creating like objects is like a cantrip in D&D. Like, creating objects doesn't require you to destroy anything, but creating life is a huge cost. So how can you use your powers to create something that is not living that allows you to solve your problem? Yeah. So, let's add that to the theme. Creative solutions can save lives. So, we have a really interesting hard magic system. So, now, this secret society of magic users, they are probably very reclusive, because if they can destroy life very easily and just create monsters, they probably want to stay hidden. That's all. I don't really... If I was writing a book or a novel based on this, I would definitely want to explore the secret society of magic users a lot more. But for now, let's just focus on the relationship between Shay and Tyrese. So, Shay is being tested of some sort. Whatever the test is, it would be easiest to create a life form to do it for/with her. She must use her ingenuity. She must decide whether it's worth doing the magic. Actually, I'm just gonna move these down here. If she passes, she gets inducted into the society, the secret society. If she fails, she will be killed. Or maybe not killed. If she fails, her powers will be taken from her. Yeah, that's better, because if something must come from nothing, you can give people in the society have the power, after years and years of training, to give and take powers where they will, but they can't destroy the power itself, like the source of the power. They must put it into someone else. In order to keep their society alive, they must... They can transfer powers, but cannot destroy the sources of power. To keep the society alive, they must pass on their powers, and since the sources of power occur naturally, and randomly, it is best if to allocate power to those worthy. You might run into the problem of, why do they have to pass on the powers? Why can't they just kill people to give themselves more life? But let's write that into the magic system just outright. Cannot create or cannot bargain with human life, because the human spirit is invaluable. Yeah. All right. So, let's get back to this test. What is the test that she needs to pass? What can she do? When would it be easier to what is something that would be best for a living thing, but she would rather have some sort of mechanism do it? So it's kind of like an engineering assignment almost, where you can create life. Well, engineering isn't like, well, that's a different topic, but in some of my engineering classes, we had to basically solve a problem with basic design constraints. This is kind of similar, because she needs to solve a problem without relying on someone else. She has to go and come up with the solution on her own. Here, I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Thanks for waiting. So, alright. A quick clarification I think I'd like to make. I was thinking about this. Just make it more interesting. Creating raw materials are free. That way we get to like see her use them to build something. That way she doesn't just come up with functioning robot. You don't need humans. I can make a robot to do all the things I need. Nah, I want to have her build it so that we can see how creative and ingenuitive, how cool of an engineer she is. So, what is the test? It should be something that people could naturally solve in like a big group, but a machine people could naturally solve in a big group. We could get into like some artificial intelligence stuff here, but I think the focus should be like her building ability, not like her AI coding ability. What could people naturally solve in a big group? Maybe not even solve, just do. Well, humans basically require 3 things. Air, well, they require a whole lot more than this, but like the basic biological needs are food, water, air, and some way to expel wastes. Like, that's the bare bones stuff a thing needs to live. How much of each depends on the organism you're talking about, but the basic requirements of life are get nutrients from something, you have some form of air. Well, there are anaerobic organisms, but we'll not worry about that for now. You'll have air, and you can expel wastes. Change this to life forms. So, what if the challenge is to purify the air? What if they're on like some sort of continent or some sort of city or country with like really bad air pollution? So her big test is just solving a problem for her city. Her big test in this case is to purify the air. Maybe she's isolated in a room and they're pumping air that's toxic into the room, and once it gets to a certain concentration, she will pass out. Her test is to purify the air. Now, the logical leap from here is that organisms can purify this air, like trees take in carbon dioxide and release oxygen via photosynthesis, thus purifying the air. Well, not purifying, but like increasing the oxygen content for other organisms like humans to be able to live. So her test is to purify the air. However, the only now she can create an organism to purify the air for her, but she must sacrifice something to do it. The only living thing she can sacrifice is... What if the only thing she can sacrifice is a family member, or her best friend, or her love interest, or someone that's dear to her she really doesn't want to sacrifice? That could be really... You could say a lot with that sort of thing. Like, if she does go through with it, that would say, like, the world or self-preservation is more important than familial bonds, which I don't... It makes for, like, the good background of, like, a villain sort of story, but I kind of want to write a hero story of, like, ingenuity trumps overall or something like that. So, only thing she can sacrifice is her younger sister. And we can justify this in the magic system is if you destroy a human, you can create one of whatever you want. So maybe this is an evil society expecting her to sacrifice her sister to show her loyalty to the society, but instead she instead of sacrificing her, she builds something to purify the air for her so that she can A, live, and B, keep her baby sister safe. That could be a really interesting story. Like, she's refusing the license, she's refusing to do something she finds morally wrong. She refuses to believe that she refuses to dedicate herself to the cause if that means losing her baby sister along the way. That could be... I like that. That's really cool. So what is the thing that she builds? Just an air purifier, I guess. She would have to, like... I don't know. Just an air purification device. The test is meant to get her to sacrifice the baby sister, but as long as she finds a way around it, it doesn't matter. So this society is evil, and so she's outwitting the evil society she had once thought she'd be a part of. Alright, I like it.